Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started here. We've got maybe a few folks trickling in, but hello everybody and welcome to as we kick off our eCapital Insights for Automation. This is the first of our four-part series this year that'll focus on various aspects of automation. For those that don't know me, I'm Michelle Collier. I'm a client partner here at eCapital. Due to the time, I'm going to cover a couple of administrative things before I hand it over to our automation team. Due to the time, we're going to ask that everybody put their questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the ribbon on the bottom of the screen, and we'll handle those at the end. We do encourage questions, so please ask as you think of them. Just put them in the Q&A, and we'll cover them at the end. Following the webinar, we will send out a slide deck, as well as the recording of the presentation. So if in case you want to share it with others or want a reminder of what we covered, and then we'll pre-register you for the upcoming webinars, and then we'll send reminders as the other dates get closer. I think that's it. With that, I'll hand it off to Eileen and Michael.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. Well, as we get into introductions, my name is Eileen Riley, and I am the automation practice lead here at eCapital. Have been here actually coming upon a year already. So excited to be sharing some information with you all, and hope to have just a good discussion.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. Michael McClure with eCapital Advisors. I am the automation technical and development lead, so primarily responsible for developing and implementing automation solutions for our clients. Been doing this for a little over 5 years now, and excited to share some knowledge with you today on the topic.
Perfect. All right. So as mentioned, really the objective of today is just kind of a really high level introduction into automation, really creating that foundation for the business transformation that a lot of clients are wanting to embark upon right now. Kind of walking through the different automation tools, really, kind of starting out with what is RPA, really kind of general good use cases where you can get started in your automation journey, how to also get started. That's another big thing that we'll cover. And then lastly, from an agenda perspective, really just takeaways, next steps, what action items can you take as you do start upon that automation program, or even just dipping your toes into automation.
Great. All right, so starting off here, have just a really breakdown of automation in general, divided into 4 different pillars. I'll admit I kind of hate the word automation because it's so generalized. Automation goes from physical things in manufacturing to the thermostat in your home, right? So when we're talking about automation today, what are we really talking about here? So starting on the left side of this diagram, we have the main focus of this call, which is going to be robotic process automation, or commonly referred to as RPA. And the reason we're starting here, right, is that this is really what we see as the foundational layer for automation at an enterprise level. And this is technology that's existed for over 10 years and really has a mature ecosystem around it, and is a good place to get started. As we kind of move from left to right here, we start to get additional automation capabilities that enhance kind of the base level RPA. So typically, when we're starting out, we're talking about robotic process automation, and then moving right and folding in some of these additional capabilities over time. So again, we'll focus on RPA, just cover the other ones at a high level. Document extraction, right? Really automation suite of looking at getting data from unstructured documents like PDFs and checks and invoices plays really well with actually the automating piece, right? Get that data, then do something with it. We also have workflow, which is interactions between humans and bots, right? Some processes are very complicated, and how do we do those handoffs between? And then finally, I do want to address this too, is intelligent automation out here on the right. So this is probably what everyone's really excited about hearing in the news, is ChatGPT, and really automation that has general cognitive capabilities, right? Everything we're going to talk about today is more of business rule. We tell an automation to do something and it goes and does that. In the future, we expect a lot more to come down this route with intelligent automation. So with that, I'm going to jump into RPA specifically here. And I think maybe it's helpful to start with what it isn't. And I've already kind of alluded to this here at the start. RPA is not a physical robot, and it is not something that thinks for itself or talks, or you see it, right? It's a piece of software, or a digital labor, we like to call it. And another thing I do like to say here at the starting point is that the philosophy of automation is not to try to replace as many humans as possible and cut cost. I think cost reduction is a great benefit of automation, but it's not specifically the number one driving goal in our thought, right? We want to empower people to work better and get their work done faster, not to just replace them with a robot, right? So getting into that, what is RPA? So RPA is digital software, like I said, that allows employees to create what is commonly referred to as bots. Again, these are going to be digital bots, not physical ones. And what these bots are able to do are some of those typical, I would say, programming IT things like connecting to SQL databases, but also able to replicate human tasks, such as opening a website and clicking on a button to generate a report. And that's really what we've seen over the past 10 years or so is we have all these existing automation tools and we've seen them packaged together into enterprise level technology, which is RPA. So getting into that, like what does it mean when we say creating a bot, right? I think everyone is familiar with an Excel macro, right? And if someone went out and did that today, it would typically look like bringing in an IT resource or a developer, working them through that, having them create it. And then that's kind of the end result, right? You have an Excel sheet and you have something automated in there. And that's what's been going on for the past, 20 years. What RPA allows us to do is really take it a step further. So inside the RPA tool suite, we rather than having someone really technical, we can bring a standard employee that just knows Excel from a basic user perspective and actually enable them to create their own automation through some low code interfaces. But what's cool about that is that that's not where we have to end, right? We can say, all right, once we're done with Excel, let's go ahead and take that data and let's put it into your ERP system, right? And then after we put into your ERP, let's push that over to Salesforce. So the real benefit and what we've seen in the past 10 years are all these great automation tools packaged together in a single product that then can really allow for complex end-to-end automation from Outlook to Excel to PDFs. And you can even do fancy things like machine learning. But really focusing on what RPA does today are these capabilities down here. So one of the large ones is going to be data entry. Like I said, you have data in Excel. And I think we've all probably been there where you're copying and pasting data over. If that's a routine process, right, that is bread and butter for automation of something of we have data here, we want to get it moved into this system. Again, everything we're talking about today is all rule-based procedures. So there's no AI or it's going out and doing black box activities. Whatever your business rules are, that is what is the automations are programmed to do. And they'll do that every time specifically. Data extraction, we've talked on this too. So not only entering data, but receiving data, right? A very common use case is going out and pulling data from multiple sources and combining that into a single report. People are probably familiar with, hey, we have data in 3 different systems, right? It can be pretty cumbersome to have to tie all those together, especially if that's a repetitive process. So automating all that. And then kind of as we get here, we get into more general capabilities, data validation, generating custom reports, emailing, and communication, right? All those pieces that seem pretty basic of, hey, once we're done with this, we have to send this out to other people. All that can be automated and just save time and make sure things are being done and nothing is kind of being forgotten about, right? I think that's one of the main things of RPA is you can see it as the glue that ties your systems together through a digital employee. So that's kind of a high level overview of just RPA specifically. It's really being able to do code actions and simulate human actions all combined into a single platform. With that, I'll hand it over to Eileen here. If you go over the benefits that I kind of just talked about coming out of that.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. So in one of the upcoming webinar series, we will do a deeper dive into value realization, ROI, specific benefits, but I think it's important for everyone to start out on kind of with a good foundation of really the general benefits that you can achieve when you're moving into an automation program or an automation journey. So here we have, a lot of, again, kind of your general improved employee morale, employees who maybe were doing reports day in, day out. They're not having to do those mundane activities anymore. Productivity is another big one. Same with reliability and consistency, really that kind of auditability of automation. And then kind of on the left side too, it's accuracy, strengthening governance. These are a lot of those just general good benefits that people and different companies are really interested in when they start with automation. So, again, we'll do a deeper dive later in how to actually go about determining ROI, but I think it's just good to kind of level set when you're starting out what's important to you. What are going to be the drivers that are really going to help you move further into that automation program, and we'll get everybody, even from kind of C-suite down, everybody on board with moving forward with that automation program. All right, and then here we have just kind of a good high-level overview of really some of the areas that eCapital has seen a lot of success and experience with. We do have a lot of good use cases by different business units as well as by different industries. A lot of these are some of the good kind of entry-level and general processes that are good for you to start out with. So, we have, for example, work order and build of materials scheduling. Especially within supply chain, that's a good area to start with. Also kind of moving down into finance and accounting. We have account opening, money movement. There are a lot of different capabilities within different business units that you can start. Again, making sure that the areas and the processes that you're really wanting to dive into from the beginning are tied, really to different business value drivers that are important for your company. So I think that's one of the reasons, we really were excited, especially to start out with this webinar series, was just, what are going to be those important areas for you to start into that are really going to drive value for your company, because they do differ depending on company, industry, vertical, etc. All right. So, as part of this, walking through what is RPA and, kind of typical use cases that you can get started. But a lot of the questions that we especially get are, how do we get started? Where do we get started? What are some of the steps that we can take in order to begin that journey? We've put together a couple of those very beginning steps that I think are really important to start thinking about as you do at least dip your toes into automation. I think one of the main and kind of key drivers is identifying your KPIs and your business metrics. What really is going to drive the needle for either your company in general or even your business unit? You want to look at what areas are the most critical. Where do you want to see the most improvement? Where do you have the biggest roadblocks that you want to get through? So I think that identifying those are really important. KPIs is the first piece, but operational efficiency, using customer and employee surveys. Where are you seeing the most bottlenecks? Where are you seeing the most issues that you really want to remove? And then the next step after identifying those KPIs and business metrics is really identifying the processes. Which ones do you want to start with? Again, what's going to be maybe the low-hanging fruit that you can really start to see a lot of traction with? Which really are you going to see either the most cost savings, accuracy, employee morale, etc. But actually walking through and putting those together is going to be really critical as well. And then feasibility is the next one. Feasibility really is which processes should you start on and why. Those low-hanging fruit, ones that are easy to get through, very manual, repetitive, rules-based, those are going to be really great candidates. Especially as you start out, you'll start kind of small on the complexity scale, and then you'll grow from there. But I think these key pieces, especially these first three, are really important as you do begin to start out with automation, just to make sure that you have that very narrowly defined scope, exactly what you're targeting and where to go from there.
Great. Yeah, and just to add on to a little bit of a customer story here, right? So I think a lot of times people talking about automation focus on the processes first and what we can do. What we're challenging is think, what is the end goal, and then work your way back to those processes. So we had a customer that actually had surveys from we had a client that had surveys from their customers that essentially were highlighting, compared to other services that we use, the ticket times are too long. So the KPI that they wanted to drive on was cycle time for support tickets for their customers. Through that, able to how those tickets are being created, and then start tackling the largest volumes of them, right? What's the most common ticket type out there? And then get into a feasibility discussion. This is the biggest hitter. Can we do that type of thing? So just wanted to add some context in there around, what we see actually clients do and how they think about it.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael, for the added color on there. Mentioning feasibility, I think it's important as you have identified some processes, trying to determine which ones you can and should start on really is that candidate selection criteria. This is just kind of a good base and maybe general way of determining which processes to start on. There are a couple of key identifiers. So you can look at volume of transactions. If something's being done multiple times a day, every day, nonstop, then that is a good indicator of something that could be automated. If it's done once a month, sometimes not as often, those are ones that maybe you'd want to tackle at a different time in your automation journey, or they maybe won't have the high enough ROI or value to determine that you want to move forward with those. Same thing with repetitiveness, importance of human involvement. If something is very rules-based and doesn't really need any human involved in the decisions that are being made throughout that process, that also is a good one. If it is taking a lot of human logic in order to accomplish that process, those get, I think, kind of lower down on that feasibility of processes that, determining based on a lot of other fit factors, you might not want to move forward with those. But again, I think it's helpful to have all of these different areas where you can really look at each of your processes. How do they sort of rate on this overall scale? Is feasibility low? Might want to put that lower on your, kind of pipeline of processes to move forward with, or is it really high and this is going to be a quick, easy one. We're going to see value and benefits from that immediately.
So getting into the next section here, right? I know we're talking about getting started, but obviously kind of want to give some context for what an automation program can look like. What type of time frame are we talking about here? So as we've said with getting started, right, it's really identifying those business goals, those key end goals, and then finding what we would recommend 3 to 5 processes that support that goal, right? Whether it's cycle time, cost reduction, whatever it is, what are the processes that feed into that? And then let's make sure that 3 to 5 that are selected have low complexity and very clear measurable business value, right? Want to be able to take these as a story and say, hey, we developed 3 automations and we were able to do X, Y, and Z with it, and then expand that program from there. So that's really what we see in the first couple months. So we said 3 months here to get those first automations out there. So in general, not super long and complicated projects in comparison to some things like ERP upgrades, right? Getting out of that first step, we get into education and governance. So really, if you have 3 to 5 automations out there, that's great. But how are you going to be set up if you want 100 automations out there? What's the governance framework to manage all those, as well as to manage change, right? Because processes do change over time, and it gets more challenging to deal with that the more you have out there, right? So what are the internal resources allocated to supporting this, and what type of structure do we want to set up for growth, right? And that generally leads to a lot of centers of excellence discussions, whether that's IT or business, obviously something that we help our clients decide what's best for them. But in that, 3 to 6 month time period, we want to set that up for success long term. So once we really have kind of wins out there and a framework for moving forward, can really start to scale across the business, right? So generally starting with one department on a couple use cases, but how do we get into sales, IT, and take the technology and allow other departments to benefit from it as well? So continuing that education piece and evangelizing the technology across other business units. And then from there, right, you take your 3 to 5 bots in your framework and you're able to work up to 50, 100 bots and really start to drive analysis and measure benefits, right? Through having your own automation KPIs, that is. So to give you some context of what this journey can look like for clients that we've worked with historically. And this is kind of a good summary of that, of everything we do along there.
Yeah, perfect. And thanks, Michael. I think it's helpful to know too that everybody has their own automation journey. Maybe you're in different parts of your automation journey. Some might be starting, some might be more in the middle. Others are very well established, but a lot of the experience that we bring and where we're wanting to really collaborate and work with different clients and companies is we kind of meet you where you're at based on the journey that you have been on. So offering everything from advisory and roadmap, really that process identification, prioritization, helping you build up that backlog and pipeline of opportunities. And then that also covers ROI, that value analysis piece as well. But moving in, as Michael mentioned, really scaling your program, potentially setting up a center of excellence. That does involve, the governance, all of your change management activities, really ensuring that communication is coming top down and everybody within the company is on board. And then kind of finally landing with implementation. We've done everything from health checks, really to determine what you have in place, if there are areas for opportunity, how you can continue to grow and scale, and then all the way through support, life cycle planning, really in true implementation. So there are a lot of different areas where we can jump in and really offer our guidance and expertise and work with you. Again, just depending upon everybody's, really where they are in their journey and their own experiences. Right, perfect. Michelle, you want to tackle this last one, or?
Sure, I can. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, this is intended to be kind of a series that's going to build. So we do have some dates out there that we will be, as I mentioned, if you've registered for this one, we will be pre-registering you for the May 23rd. We're going to jump into a little bit about ROI and learning about kind of reporting metrics and realizing value. In July, we'll talk about setting up COE, change management around automation. And then on September 26th, we're going to probably pull the group in July and kind of see where the pulse check is and what people want to learn more about. We can go in a lot of directions. So that's still to come on topics there that will kind of be, like I said, be building on this first webinar as we go along. So obviously you can definitely reach out to one of us or myself if you want to learn more in the meantime. If you guys have questions, definitely pop them in the Q&A. I don't know if we've got questions, but I'm happy to pull Michael and Eileen and put them on the spot here for some questions. So if anybody has those, please definitely put those in the Q&A box here, and I'll give a few minutes for people to do that. But definitely also input and on what people would like to learn more about. Always open to that as well. But can definitely reach out to me to talk more.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was just going to say, while people are typing in questions, I was just going to add on that we would love to see, people join us for the May 23rd session. And today we kind of talked about that starting point of what are your goals, right? And then what are the processes that feed into the goals? That May 23rd session, we'll be diving into really evaluating those processes. Should you move forward with them? What are the benefits directly from use cases like that? So it can hopefully step you along with the webinar series through that journey as well.
Yep, yeah, and hopefully, I think the webinar series are made to be kind of small bites. One, they're easy to attend, but also just kind of give you a good high level and deeper look into some of these areas. But if you do have questions, unsure of what processes maybe to start on, we would love to do consultations. A free 60 or 90-minute consultation just to walk through what areas are you really thinking of focusing on, doing a bit of a deeper dive, maybe into feasibility and the complexity. So, we're really passionate and excited about, driving value, especially with automation, and we'd like to help our clients with that as well. So, again, would be more than happy to sit down and have some good discussions with you all.
All right, I don't have any brave souls with questions. And just FYI, the questions are anonymous, so they're only coming, only the hosts and panelists get to see those. So if you're waiting because you're not thinking you're not anonymous, go ahead and throw one out there. But otherwise, maybe just give a few more seconds here. But I don't have anything in the Q&A unless there's anybody from the group that has one before we wrap up.
You can always send your questions to Michelle too afterwards.
Yeah.
And we will follow with you that way too.
Happy to do that as well. So. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and give you a couple minutes back here, but thank you for joining the first webinar, and we look forward to the next topic and any questions you may have. Thanks so much, everyone. and enjoy the rest of your day.